All right. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to wait just 10 seconds just so the people that are scheduled to attend this can join us, and then we'll start off with our. Here we go. We got some viewers here. So excellent. So thank you for joining me on our second episode of Your Future Mayor. I'm Steve Schreiber, community journalist, entrepreneur, and of course, one of Cedar Rapids' biggest cheerleaders, biggest fans. I chose to do this series for a couple reasons. One, for myself, so I could be an informed voter, and two, to share this interview and my interviews with the community, so that we can all go to the polls on November 7th and make an educated decision. We have 8 people running for mayor, and they are all people that you've likely not heard of all of them, I should say. We've got a few people that have just been working in Cedar Rapids area and doing their thing and think they can make a positive change. And we've got people like Gary and some city council members that have been involved in the city before. So we have a big decision to make. The people running are Gary Hinzman, Monica Vernon, Scott Olson, Tim Pridgeon, Jarrell Robinson, Lemmy Talone, Brad Hart, and so we'll be interviewing Brad Hart later today. All right, all of these questions, let me just get, one more thing. I got my notes here to make sure I don't. Thank you, Russ Fagel, for creating this graphic. Hear from your future mayor. Appreciate it. I'm going to plug him every time we do this. And the questions that we're going to talk about were all submitted on Facebook by people on Facebook, community members, and I'm asking the same questions for every candidate. We might deviate a little bit, trying to keep this under a half hour so it's easily consumable. Tonight, actually, last little note here, you have an option, I believe, to share this live broadcast. If you do, please share it right now so we can get more people engaged in this process. Tonight, we have Gary Hinzman. He's born in Amana, Iowa. He's a Jefferson graduate. He went away in the Army and came back in 1970 to work for the Cedar Rapids Police Department. He was one of the original helicopter pilots and worked his way up through promotions to be the chief of police in Cedar Rapids. And then after he was chief of police, he went to be to run the Department of Correctional Services for 24 years. So, Gary, thanks for.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So we're going to start off with a real tough question here.
All right.
This is submitted by Jesse Salbright. What do you get on your pizza?
Well, I love sausage and mushroom, and I always try to get it from Leonardo's, which is the old haunt that I've had for a couple of decades, going to Jefferson.
Nice. Excellent. And another one, we have a growing fashion movement in Cedar Rapids and in the corridor. And so somebody asked, Candace Whelan actually asked, who are you wearing?
Well, I had to think about that, and I asked my wife, and she said that are usually looking for sales at JCPenney's and Yonkers or establishments like that.
Okay, so very, very practical,
Indeed.
pragmatic. All right. Nothing wrong with that at all. So a little personal question. What was your household like growing up?
Well, my dad was a dairy herdsman in Amana to begin with. Hard-working family. All of my brothers and I and my mother and my sisters all had chores to do. We were milking a dairy herd of about 110 cows twice a day, so you can imagine the work that went into that. But we never were hungry. We were poor, but never hungry, if you can imagine that, because of where we lived in Amana. And we always had close support for our family. We loved each other. And I think those were some of the things that brought us into the world.
Nice. Excellent. All right, so now we're getting into some real nitty-gritty questions here. What is the role of government in economic development? And what are your views on TIF and other financial incentives for private or publicly traded businesses?
Well, that's a good question. I think that the mayor, by his job description in this municipal code, is the primary officer for economic development for the city. The mayor has to work closely with the city manager and the management staff of the city and with the business community to make those things happen. And I think that there are opportunities for the businesses that are looking for support and to get TIF tax credits or other sorts of economic advantages through the Iowa Finance Authority or community development block grants. And I think that whenever the council is considering issuing TIFs or other types of tax breaks, they have to do a really incredibly fine review of that. They need to make sure that at a certain point in time that pays back and the taxpayers are realizing the net gain. May be deferred for 5 years or 10 years, but ultimately it has to be a gain for the community. And if it's not, then we better think carefully about what we're doing.
That's a great answer. I would say as a citizen, it'd be great if we knew it. Because we just trust. There's a lot of trust involved. If we knew what the net impact was, and if it was indeed positive.
Yeah, I think the council has an obligation to try to do that.
Oh, nice. All right. So, what are your thoughts on green spaces, and specifically, how do you plan to fund the greenway plans already in place?
Well, some of them are being funded through some state grant programs already. You may know that when we had the flood in 2008, I stepped up with a group of wardens from the northeast part of the country, and we brought in equipment and supplies and labor to restore the park in time check. And it was an example where we could say to the community that we're going to clean this community up again. We're not going to let the flood define us and leave things vacant. And so I was looking on Facebook just yesterday. Somebody posted some of the photos of that, and again, comments from the Northwest neighbors about how grateful they were. So I think that we need to continue with the green space. There's the monarch zones that can be part of that. And there's soccer fields designed and softball fields, pee-wee football fields. So there's a lot of amenities that would really work well in the green space. I think we have to weigh that with the incentives that we can get and the tax breaks we can get from state and federal government. I think we need to explore that. Throughout my career, I've never taken no for an answer on a grant. We just go after it again. And we've been successful, and I think I can do that with the city as well.
Nice. All right. Okay. So here we go. Traffic cameras. What's your take? What's your opinion on traffic cameras?
Well, I'm an old police chief, so that'll give you a little bit of a hint. But
right.
I am concerned that not just that the traffic cameras may be shut down, but I'm concerned also that this is an example of Cedar Rapids, who is supposed to be operating under home rule, losing some local control. And it's the legislature or the Supreme Court didn't say you can't have traffic cameras. It's really bureaucratic rules that were implemented when people write administrative rules for programs like this that gave the authority to the Department of Transportation to determine traffic cameras and where they could be. And so I have a basic opposition to the fact or the notion that if those major highways and interstates run through our jurisdiction in Cedar Rapids, and we are charged with this responsibility of enforcing traffic laws and working traffic accidents, then the city of Cedar Rapids ought to be able to do that in the most effective and safest way for our citizens. And what's happening now without the traffic cameras operating effectively is that we're seeing again those dangerous accidents that occur. My officers, when I was police chief, used to come into my office on a regular basis saying, please don't make us go up there again. We're like bowling pins, and it's so slick and cars are sliding all over when we're working accidents. So we have to be mindful that this is a dangerous business, and we have to have the tools and the ability to enforce the traffic laws effectively. And it's not just traffic laws, it's also local control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've thought about that one for sure. Good history with that. So what are your views on sustainability in business? And should we incentivize businesses to be more accountable for their waste, whether it's solid waste or energy consumption?
Well, the answer is yes. I think we're living in a society that we are much more aware of our environment. We're much more aware of our waste products. And I think we should give incentives to people to recycle, to sort and separate garbage from what can be recycled. So I think we should provide incentives, and I think that we should encourage businesses to take advantage of that.
Yeah. All right. So another hot topic here with casinos. Are you in favor of a casino in Cedar Rapids? If yes, why? And also, which one of the proposed plans do you support?
Okay. Well, I am in favor of the casino simply because I'm not a gambler myself. My wife could tell you that, but I support the casino because 61% of the residents in Lee County did. Again, it kind of gets back to that local control issue, and I am concerned once again that people are trying to tell residents of Cedar Rapids what they can do or not do. A casino brings tremendous revenue to a community. I saw something recently in Des Moines where they gave $50 million back to nonprofits from their casino. Can you imagine a casino in Cedar Rapids operating that could give $20 or $30 million a year to our nonprofits? And what a wonderful blessing that would be. The other end of it is the revenues from the taxes on the casino that we are not getting, and it is hurting our economic vitality for this community. And I believe, again, it's a home rule, local control issue. I believe that Cedar Rapids should not be discouraged from having a casino and gaining revenue from that, just like all the other major cities in Iowa do. Cedar Rapids ought to be allowed to do that as well. And if I'm mayor, I'm going to be exploring that further through the courts.
Yeah, that's strong language. All right. How can we drive a stronger labor force? This was somebody said it's impossible to find help.
Well, it is very difficult. You know, people I've talked to have said the same thing. But here's what I believe: is that there's nothing impossible. I think that we can look at bringing domestic immigrants, as I would call them, people from other communities and states. It would be ideal if there was states similar to Iowa that people would not have culture shock moving here. But even if they do, I think we should use our community college and our higher education institutions to help bring people here and develop pipelines. This is an example. I was working on my campaign last weekend, and I had a couple of kids that were helping me. I was paying them for it, but I asked them where they were from, and they were from Chicago. They were really nice kids. One was a criminal justice major, the other one environmental science, and they were recruited into Kirkwood through a pipeline that Kirkwood has effectively in place. I think we need to have more of those going to other communities and other states and bring people here, and then the community colleges and our businesses need to work together to open up employment opportunities that are real and the type of opportunities that pay a decent wage, and we respect the dignity of each person in the workforce. And I think if we can do those things, then I think we can springboard maybe to even some international development of recruiting pathways. I've spent a lot of time in Europe in my career. I work closely with Germany and Poland in particular. People in Poland are telling me every day that, because they know I'm running for mayor of Cedar Rapids, they want to know how they can be helpful to help Cedar Rapids grow. They have a workforce that's looking for a place to work. And so I think there's, maybe it all won't come together, but I think we need to explore those opportunities. We need to bring a competent workforce here. We need to have incentives and apprenticeship programs for them to grow their skills and join the labor force.
All right, yeah, global village, global economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so this is something that you probably have also spent some time on. Do you have any ideas to reduce the gang and gun violence in Cedar Rapids?
Well, yes, I do. As a matter of fact, that's my career. And I think that's important for me because stepping into the mayor's office, I've already had 3 or 4 decades of managing very complex government organizations, in this case, law enforcement and corrections agencies. Tough decisions, tough business. But I found out that we needed to do more than just effective enforcement. We needed to get into the neighborhoods. Some people know that I'm highly responsible for developing the network of neighborhood associations that exist in the city today. We did that through some federal grants. We developed youth leadership and Children of Promise programs so that kids that were in trouble and were in homes where they might not succeed, we were able to move in with our foster grandparent program, provide the kids an opportunity to grow and learn and be successful and be accepted when they got to 1st or 2nd grade. And I remember the first time we took some of the kids that were 5 or 6 years old and let them put their feet on the campus of Coe College. What a tremendous event that was. These kids who thought there was nothing for them in the world, that it was hopeless for them, had their feet on Coe College, and they were thinking to themselves, someday I'm going to be here. That's a tremendous incentive for a kid that may not have other chances.
Yeah, that's huge. So speaking of school, this is a question I think we didn't have time for last night. Jennifer Borscherking submitted this question. What plans do you have to collaborate with the CR School District to increase student achievement and provide future-ready options for high school graduates?
Well, I do have plans. We have to be careful how much money we're saying is coming out of the Cedar Rapids coffers because there may not be enough to go around. But the mayor has the opportunity to use his bully pulpit to bring other people to the table. And we have done that many times, and we've gone up the federal grants to help us collaborate and do more. And I think we have the opportunity to do that. I think that there are examples, Peoria and some other places I'm aware of, that have done just that. They have built collaborations between the city, the county, and the school district and made them work. I think we have a chance to do that here. I can't dictate that because there's many other government leaders that have a say in it, but I have been known throughout my career as one of the best collaborators around, and I think we can bring people to the table and we can accomplish a great deal.
Well said. What work will you do towards creating and sustaining safe and healthy, affordable housing in Cedar Rapids?
Well, that's another good question. You're leading me into things I've already done, and I like that. But we have, in fact, built low-income housing. We built 26 townhouses adjacent to our correctional complex, and the whole thing is like on 27 acres of land. But we built 26 townhouses so that people who were formerly incarcerated that are trying to get back on their feet and living with their families so that they can support their wife and their children, we allow them to live there where other places in the community may not allow them to because of a criminal record, a felony record. That's not mandatory by HUD at the national level. It's only permissive that you can use it if you want to. Unfortunately, most landlords do use it, and people don't want to live next to criminals, and so they're concerned about that. I've zoned correctional complexes all over eastern Iowa, and if there's anything harder to zone than a low-income housing, it's a correctional facility.
Right.
But we have done it over and over again, and we have been able to work with the communities, give them assurances, show them that we can control this. And the ironic thing was, whenever we finished a correctional complex, 2 years later, hamburger joints, restaurants, hotels, all those would be growing around us. They didn't care that we were there at that time, but they did care to begin with.
Right.
So we know how to do it, and we can do it.
Okay. So you had good results.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So streets are a big deal right now. People are talking about the streets.
Yes.
Our current plan for street repair doesn't address large numbers of smaller residential streets within the next 10 years. This impacts resale values of homes, not to mention issues with transportation. What we can do to create a comprehensive plan for Cedar Rapids regarding streets?
Well, that's another fair question, and I can tell you that I've been out knocking on doors and talking to people, and I ask them what their concerns are with city government, and streets is the number one issue.
Yep.
And I've talked to city officials, who I won't name, but they're interested in what I'm finding out too. And I said, it's streets. And people say, well, we're doing all we can right now with streets, and they're really trying. But I think we need to think of some innovative ways to do more. And at one time we bonded to get money for street development and paid that back, and that's a possibility. But before I get into office and start pushing too hard, I want to take a look at the city's finances and see their fiscal condition. I'm really concerned that we lost our AAA bond rating a few years ago, and I'd like to know if there's a way we can get that back. So we'll be exploring those things. I don't have the magic board to make all that happen today, but there are issues that I can promise residents of Cedar Rapids that we will look at very closely and see what we can do.
Yeah. I'd say one thing from my perspective with the streets would be communication.
Oh, yeah.
Just tell me when this is closing
Yeah.
and how long it's going to be closed, because sometimes it just pops up and I'll say, oh, okay, my street's closed.
I hear that a lot.
Communication.
And then the other thing I hear a lot of is people do not understand the bike lanes and how they operate. And so there's a lot of confusion about that. And I've had dozens of people tell me that they don't want to drive downtown anymore because they're afraid they're going to hit somebody or have an accident. I think it's education. I think we need to get more education out, maybe send something out in the water bill that says, did you know, this is the case, or bike lanes are for this purpose, and here's what you can do, crossing bike lanes or not. I think we can address that through better education to our public.
Definitely. Well, good. We have 2 questions left, so in 8 minutes within our half-hour time frame. So if you feel like the need to spend a little extra time on these, the first one is walk us through your first 100 days in office if you're elected.
Well, there'll be a couple things that I'll be doing right away. First of all, I want to make sure that I do a formal introduction to the city manager and his key staff. I think they're very important. They're trying to do the best job that they can. I think most people in the community respect what they do. And so I will be spending some time with them, getting to know them, talking about these issues that you and I have been addressing tonight, streets, public safety, et cetera, and get their viewpoints and what they believe. We'll look a little bit at economic development. That is one of the primary functions of the mayor. So we'll take a good look at that. We'll look at what's happening with the housing department and how they're operating and what they're doing to provide incentives for people to come to Cedar Rapids and live. We want to grow this community, and so I will be focusing on meeting the city staff and getting their opinions on how we can better grow the city and have more success, because everybody wants that. And then next, it's questionable how many people will leave the council this year. Depends on who gets elected and who doesn't. Some of them may not get elected and they'll stay on the council. Some of them are not running for re-election on the council, and if they don't get elected, they're gone. And so I foresee that there may be 2, perhaps 3 council members. I don't think there'll be more than that right now that may be gone. And again, it would be my responsibility, and maybe working with the city manager to meet with them and do some goal preparation, how we want the city to operate, what we're going to do, how we're going to collaborate together, what are the ground rules that I expect, and what do they expect to be. So I think we'll collaborate and we'll find ways to be more successful.
Yeah, and the alignment is so important within the organization. And we haven't talked about the flood, and I know that you've got experience with that as well.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind touching on that.
I will. And I'll tell you that not only do I have experience with the flood, but in 1987 we had Toxic Tuesday in Cedar Rapids, and I was the police chief at that time, and we had to evacuate 30,000 people on the southeast quadrant. So I'm not a stranger to disasters or adversity. And with the 2008 flood, I was with corrections, but before the press even started going down, the chief judge, Judge Rimley, brought us all together at Kirkwood and said, look, the jail is closed, the county courthouse is closed, the clerk of court is closed. Who's going to step up and fill this void? Well, we stepped up. We converted one of our facilities into a jail. We converted one of our human resource centers into places where people could be booked and where the county attorney and the clerks could all work out of. And we kept them that way for a year or so. And then while we were organizing that weekend, we went back immediately to our headquarters, and I said, okay, here's the guys I want and gals I want to work on this. And pretty soon I got a phone call, and it was from the National Office of Volunteer America, the AmeriCorps Vista program. And they said, look, we know that there's a real problem in Cedar Rapids. We could send 250 AmeriCorps Vista workers to help with the cleanup, but we need somebody. We already had a fairly large program. They said, we need somebody like you to step up who can figure out the logistics. How do we house them? How do we feed them? How do we assign them their jobs and tasks? So then I split my management team into 3 parts. One maintaining daily operations, one handling what was active with the flood, and the other one bringing in the AmeriCorps Vistas and taking care of them and housing them and getting them to work. So we know how to handle those things, and it's very complex. But I can tell you that right now, I'm looking at what we can do for flood mitigation, because it's going to be a while before we get our flood walls in the way that they should be. And so we can go upstream and we can open up oxbows, we can open up marshes and grasslands and retention ponds. And I've been told by the Nature Conservancy, the Iowa Flood Center at the University of Iowa, and Linn County Conservation, that if we do the right things upstream, we can lower that crest by at least a foot. And so we ought to be doing those things, and that'll be something that I will be challenging people to look at.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, having been through multiple floods here,
for sure.
Yeah, we all want it to happen. We're doing good. We're doing it. We're hitting on the right track. But all right. So last question here, Gary. Why are you more qualified than the other candidates?
Well, we all have our own stick on that, but it's really quite simple. Is that I have a career of public service, and I have ran large, complex government entities. Nobody else on the council has done that. They've all been council members or something like that. But being a part-time council member, I don't believe, gives you the same qualifications that being in the trenches for 20 or 30 years, running complex agencies or organizations, prepare you in the same way. So I'm running because last summer, people encouraged me to get into it for strong leadership. When Mayor Corbett left his office, well, didn't leave, but said he wasn't going to run again, he said, and this is as close as I can quote it, is that Cedar Rapids needs a new mayor, somebody with a new face, and somebody with new ideas. That's me. And I've talked with Mayor Corbett about that a couple times, and I think that I'm prepared to step into that office on day one and have resolution immediately.
Nice. All right. All right. Well, thank you, Gary. All right. A couple updates. Apparently, last night I announced that October 12th is a candidate forum at the Cedar Rapids Library, which is true, but apparently there are 10 or 12 other forums that are happening throughout the city. So look for them and try to attend. And we just all want to go to the polls on November 7th, a little more educated. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Gary.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for nice interviews. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Let me hit this button here.